Can you imagine? I am so overexcited today. Forgive me, this is what's left of my voice, which I have been trying to rest up ever since. If I get through this, it'll be a miracle, but it's a huge day today. And I'm extra excited that one of my all-time literary heroes, and a hero in so many other ways, is joining us today. I hope you're well. Well, one thing for sure, you're going to be feeling better than I am, but I was determined to be here. Anyway, before further ado, and before we bring on our very special guest, live from, I don't even know where the hell he is Neil. Wow.
Greetings. We are live from the roof garden at the Karma Sanctum Hotel. It's a truly international broadcast today, live from the centre of Soho.
The Karma Sanctum Hotel is where...
And as you can see, I brought a beautiful lady co-presenter with me today. But we're just going to move to the other side of the room because it's a tad noisy.
You can't help yourself, can you? You just can't help yourself.
Radio at its best.
This is radio at its most chaotic. God knows what he's doing. I have no idea what he's doing.
So much.
Anyway, while you're doing that are you setting yourself up? Right. Karma Sanctum Hotel is where the Soho Cigar Club, which of course I'm naturally a member, that's where we hang when we meet. It's on Warwick Street, right? Yeah, it's on Warwick Street. So, can you hear me? Or are you just smiling?
We can just about hear you. We can just about hear you.
Oh, all right. Okay. Without further ado, I do not want to keep her waiting. I have been waiting for so long for this. I was amazed. This is someone I've admired for a long time. And then we started tweeting, and I thought, well, there's not the slightest chance she'll come on the show. And she said, yes. And it's marvelous. Here she is. Without further ado, author and all-round good guy, it's Joanne Harris.
Good afternoon.
Hello, it's good to see you.
Joanne, first of all, let me apologize for how I look. I'm in today, God knows what, of COVID, and I was determined this was going ahead. So I've had to put on a hat, and I look like some sort of, I don't know, whatever it is from America. And I was in such a rush just now. I have just poured boiling water all over my right hand. Genius. But there we go. It's fine. It's fine. Joanne, how are you? You look very well.
I'm very well, thank you. I'm better than you, obviously, but I had COVID last month, and I know how it feels. So I think you're very courageous to come in.
No, don't be daft. It's absolutely. I wasn't going to put this off as well. It's been planned for.
There's no way he was going to miss this one, Joanne. Trust me.
No. Anybody else?
There was no way on God's earth. His head could have fallen off, and he would have still been here. Trust me.
I would have erudited my head onto my shoulders just to be here. Now, the first thing is the shed. Every day on Twitter, you write, and it's the most beautiful thing on Twitter. You say, and today the shed is, and then other people would write, well, it's a bit of wood, and I got it from B&Q, and it's quite nice. And you write, and I got a lawnmower that I haven't used in 20 years. You write the most gorgeous prose just to describe your mythical shed. Is it a real shed?
It's absolutely a real shed, yes.
It is.
I'm not in there right now because it doesn't have a lot of
that.
Wi-Fi, but yes, it's a real place, and sometimes I do broadcast from there.
Wow. And where did you get into this extraordinary thing of creating this vision of a magical shed? It's just it gives me so much peace and comfort. I know it sounds ridiculous because we've never actually met, but it's such a beautiful thing to read.
Well, I do think that the shed has more fans than I do at the moment. And if I don't tweet about the shed at my normal time, people will say, well, are you not in the shed? Where are you? What does the shed think about where you are? Are you seeing other sheds? No, this happened. This started to happen years ago. You see, I'd never had a dedicated workplace. I wrote 5 of my books basically just sitting on the living room floor surrounded by my daughter's toys. And when I finally moved into a house that was big enough to have a workspace, I thought, this is fantastic. I can just work here in the library, surrounded by books in peace and quiet. But of course, what happened was people kept coming and visiting, and my mother would bring her friends around to look around the garden or whatever. And I didn't have a place of my own, because when you're a writer and you work from home, people think think they can just wander in and out, and it's going to be fine because they're only
It's not
disturbing
real
you
work,
for a bit.
Joanne. It's not real
Exactly.
work. What have you
And
done?
so I complained about this.
Yeah,
And
good.
my husband built me this shed, it's actually a very nice shed. It's a stone
He's a
shed.
keeper, by the way.
He is, absolutely. Well, I've kept him for nearly 40 years now, so he should be. But yeah, I mean, it's built on the remains of a hen house which used to be at the back of the garden, and it's just far enough away from the house for me not to be able to hear if somebody calls me, to not notice the postman if he turns up. And it's just muddy enough for people to hesitate before they decide to come up there and bother me. And so it is now my little commute, and I do work best in
Do you think that the machine gun nests and minefield were a step too far?
Well, I would have a moat if I could afford to build one. But I did actually find a machine gun in the hedge of the garden a couple of years ago. Kevin brought it up to the shed, wrapped in a plastic bag, saying, "Oh, I found this."
It sounds like the Krypton Factor obstacle course. I think I want to have a bit of a go, see if I could make it to the shed safely.
Well, you probably could, but you might. That there's an attack cat in there and a badger and foxes and all sorts of things. So you don't know. But I started talking about the shed as it was being built.
I'm hearing the word badger, Joanne.
Absolutely. Attack badgers
Neil,
too.
I have to ask you. You've obviously pulled or something. I have no idea who this young lady. Who is this young lady with you again?
Well,
woman of mystery. I have no idea, Joanne. I've never seen her before in my life, and he suddenly turns up with an attractive woman.
She has actually been on your show before. We did a show with her and her mum when we were talking about OCD, and it's all sort of evolved since there. Her mum has written 4 books, Hope With being the brand, Hope With Eating Disorders, Hope With Depression, Hope With Anxiety, Hope With OCD. But they made a short, because Sam is an actress, and they've made a short movie which premieres today at the Karma Sanctum Hotel, which is why we're doing this live from the roof.
We'll get back to that.
Just wanted to bring Sam on and for her to say hi. But
you're very, very
congratulations.
welcome. How lovely
it's all very exciting, but I shall let you wonderful people continue for a while.
Yeah, Neil's in it, by the way.
Yeah.
Neil,
absolutely.
We know
yes,
Neil is the Al Pacino of New Malden.
No,
anyway.
I'm not. I play a cantankerous box that looks down over his glasses, people up here, and says, "What time do you call this?" I don't know I'm going to win any BAFTAs, to be honest with you, but can't wait for the showing. It starts at 1, but we can explain a bit more later about it.
Okie dokie. Now, Joanne, you have, I'm just going to segue straight into this because I know otherwise your publishers and everybody else will be cross with me, and I can't take anything else going wrong at the moment. You have a new book out?
I do, yes. It's the paperback of A Narrow Door, which came out in hardback last year, and it's coming out in paperback on the 12th, and so I'm going to be doing a number of events around the country for that.
I see. You're like a rock star. I was looking at your schedule. I mean, I didn't mean I broke into your house and looked in your diary. I mean, it's up online, just to be clear. And you're like everywhere. You're like Will-o'-the-Wisp.
I am everywhere, yes. Well, the thing is, I've been nowhere at all in the last 2 years, and so I'm kind of making up for it a bit now. I'm just getting used to doing public events again. I was thinking that, maybe I could just be in the shed forever and never go out. But actually, my publishers had other thoughts about this.
I bet they did. Now, when you isolate yourself like that, and I'm horribly guilty of that myself, for a whole raft of reasons, do you find it's then difficult to reconnect with the outside world?
Well, no, not really. I think what's happened is that I have used social media as my connection to other people, and particularly during lockdown, it was very useful to have this kind of water cooler that I could just go to, keep in touch with other people who are in a similar position. There are a lot of writers on Twitter, and we talk to each other because we get to know each other at festivals, and then you don't see each other again for another year. So it's a nice way of keeping the kind of human contact going without necessarily being there surrounded by crowds of people.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You've touched on something interesting, because we do a lot of shows on the evils of social media. In other words, bullying and the downside and the trolling, which is absolutely shocking. But I've found it to be a very positive thing, like you, and especially with writers, with all of my 2 books, and you've done a minimum of 19 plus, and they're hugely some of the biggest book sales, in history, sort of thing. But I found the writing community to be incredibly welcoming and delightful and supportive, which is a miracle.
It genuinely is, yes. It nearly all writers are happy to help and support upcoming writers. The writing community is very warm and welcoming, and it's generally a good place to be.
Why is that? Because I can't think off the top of my hat. The only reason I'm wearing a hat because my hair looks like Ken Dodd today. I'm not trying to be trendy, or my hair looks terrible. Why is it? All the other industries, pretty backstabbing, as Neil and I know, but the writing industry has been, who the hell am I? I've written one semi-autobiography and one novel, right? And people have been people like not just yourself, Anthony Horowitz, Ellie Griffiths, Sophie Hannah, all these folks who I absolutely look up to, and they've been so nice. It's an extraordinary thing.
Well, there is from time to time, there's a bit of backstabbing, but generally not in the mainstream. Partly because writers do not have it easy most of the time, and we all know this. The general impression of writers is that we have this life of Riley, and that we're all sitting there in our luxury yachts with our pen behind our ear getting ideas, or being paid enough to maintain an apartment overlooking Central Park on one column or something. And it's just ridiculous, because writers generally are struggling all the time. And we have to stick together because, we just have to.
But there's that stereotype in every industry, isn't there? I mean, people think because I was a DJ, I was DJs, they all earn millions, writers earn millions. And if people saw what really went into it, and I can ask quickly, because I've got a friend who's just written a book, and it's been absolute blood, sweat, toil and tears for him. Perhaps I'm sure you can relate to that. What is your most conducive, obviously the shed, but your most conducive mindset, your most conducive surroundings to get in your writing flow? Do you like a buzz of people around you, absolute solitary silence? What works for you?
Well, I like silence because I tend to read aloud as I write, and that would not go down well in most coffee shops. And so it's good for me to be alone.
But actually, no, we'd love it. We'd go, shh,
maybe.
Harris. She'd go,
you'd be swearing a lot.
Reading.
Lots of swearing, lots of muttering, reading, lots of tea. Well, maybe I could do a live stream of myself from time to time doing that.
God,
but no, everybody has their own method. And generally my advice to writers is, if it works for you, then it works.
Yeah.
It's not about choosing somebody else's method or trying to follow somebody else's process, because we all get there in such diverse, different, mysterious ways. If the end product is a book, and if you're happy with it, then you got it the right way.
Yeah. What I have noticed with his writing is it's been through so many iterations, and he will go back and redo, and then it's advanced so far that chapter 4 didn't quite make sense, and that has to go back and be redone. And it's the continuity, for want of a better word, work is something I would have not have estimated. It's like with most things, there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Well, there's a huge amount to it. Yes, you're right. And a lot of it is rewriting. It's not a lot of it, it's not just sitting there typing. A lot of it is going over what you've done, is reading it aloud, it's editing it, it's moving sections of text about. And then, of course, there's the whole editorial process where you get notes from somebody else, and then you do some thinking about what they said, and you try to incorporate their ideas. So it takes a lot longer than you think. It's paid a lot less than you think, and it's the community has to be supportive, because otherwise there are so many people out there, publishers and agents and festivals, who may or may not be on your side. That it's good to know that the community is there and has your back. And
very much, it's good to know people have your back, particularly with quite a solitary life that I guess a lot of writers lead. You need that company. Too much time alone is not good. There's silence, and there's being alone all the time. There's a big difference, isn't there?
Absolutely.
One of the things,
and authors don't. Sorry, there.
No.
Authors don't talk about money much, and so because I'm chair of the authors, the trade union. because otherwise, authors don't understand money all that well. Sometimes they allow themselves to be ripped off because they want the exposure. So yes, sometimes you need a certain amount of support and legal help. And
I actually know someone that happened to it. It was her first book. It was done really, really well. For a first book, and I'm not qualified to judge. I'm only a consumer, but I thought it was, as a first book, it was fantastic, kind of a spy thriller. But something got stuck in the chain with a publisher in America or something like that, and the whole thing has just come to a resounding halt. And she doesn't really have the nous or particularly the desire. And I mean, I don't mean that in a rude way, to do anything about it. It's just like it's just too much hassle. All she wants to do was write. So
yeah,
sometimes maybe a good team of people in the community that will do that side of things. It's rare to find all those skills within everyone. Brilliant creative, brilliant money person, brilliant this, brilliant that. Sometimes it's best everyone plays to their strengths, maybe. Yeah.
Joanne, let me read this to you. I have to say read it, and you're thinking, why are you reading if it's up on screen? And the reason is because we also go out on deluxe radio, about 70,000 people at least listening, but they don't see us. And this is from Leslie Demesa. And it says, another group of people who truly support each other is education. I found it working as a trainer and author of writing textbooks for schools. Please tell Joanne I adored her beautiful descriptive writing in Chocolat, which, as an ex-English teacher, I'd love to see as a set book for GCSE. Whilst reading it, I could see, smell, touch, and taste every morsel.
Well, what a lovely compliment. Thank you. Oh, I used to be a teacher too, although I didn't teach English. And I think quite a lot of students have actually studied Chocolat. I don't know if there is such a thing as a set text anymore, but I do know from the kind of mail that I get from teachers and from students that the book has been studied. I feel a little ambivalent about this, I have to say, because I hear a lot of stories about people who feel that their enjoyment of reading has been ruined in some ways by having to study books at school, and that concerns me a little. I don't think I'd want to be responsible.
It's the having to rather than the joy of reading, isn't it? It's the having to rather than the want to. But I mean, something that, well, I learned a little bit about communication. This was done in the psychological field. Only 5% is words alone. Without body language and without voice tone, the written word only accounts for 5% of communication. I'm sure you know. So as an author, to be able to do that, if Leslie is saying, I can smell, I can taste, I can see every morsel, if she's using really sense-based words like that, and you're doing that with written word alone, that is quite something.
I love the fact that she feels that way. I love the fact that people who read those books feel that it's an immersive experience, because that was kind of what I was going for. But you never know exactly what effect you're going to have until the book is out there. I think
if she's using words like that, well, clearly you succeeded with the massive effect of it. I'm giving you a massive compliment here. Brilliant.
Well, it makes me very happy indeed. Yes.
So it should. Really, you're excellent at what you do.
Sorry, the only other book I think that really explored that alongside Chocolat was that strange little German book, Perfume.
By Süskind, yes, absolutely.
I thought that was one of the most extraordinary books I've ever read.
It was, and a translation too. Yes, a really extraordinary translator must have brought that book to English, because I didn't read it in German, but I thought that reading that book was, in fact, it's the book that made me think, before I was writing Chocolat, what if I concentrated on the sense of smell and taste in this book, because most people don't. And obviously Süskind did. And I thought, wow, if he can do that. And I found myself, when I was reading Perfume, actually having to put it aside, because sometimes his evocation of scent was just so overwhelming that I just couldn't read anymore. I had to go, okay, enough of this. I can't do this now, because a lot of the scents he's talking about are not pleasant ones, and it was just too much.
All. It's
I loved that.
It's an amazing feat to pull off both what you achieved and what he achieved, because that is very hard. It goes way
smell
beyond.
And taste into words. It's much easier to do visually or auditorily or even kinesthetic with feelings, but smell and taste, because they're not the most common ways of perceiving the world, are they?
Isn't it interesting, Joanne? Of course, they made it into a movie with a lot of big stars, as they did with yours, and it didn't. It was a fine movie to watch. It was okay, but it didn't manage to communicate that power that the words did, and that was a very telling thing when the book is just almost untranslatable to screen.
Yes, I thought that too. I thought the book was beautiful. It was visually beautiful.
Yeah.
And, the color palette was beautiful. And when I say this, because I've got synesthesia and I smell colors, that's important to me. But
Whoa.
no, they didn't. Well, we can talk about that later.
No,
but yeah,
I've heard of synesthesia.
No, we got to talk about that.
They just
I'm sorry.
didn't get there
Before we
the...
do that with your synesthesia, oh my gosh, did you? So sorry. Did you worry about that with Chocolat? Did you think, we got Johnny Depp, we got Julia Binoche, it's all marvelous, but are they going to? Did you have any control? I'm just fascinated. Did you have any control? They just go, bye, Joanne. You go, and you turn up on the set. And they go, who are you? And you say, well, I wrote the book. Yeah, well, big deal. Sit over there. Sort of attitude.
If you're lucky, you get invited to the set. I did get invited to the set, and I was lucky, and I had a great time. But no, you don't get a lot of control unless you're a very well-known author with clout. And I wasn't. I mean, the book had only been out a year.
Wow.
It was so early, and I was so unknown that I was just delighted that the movie was being made at all. And I thought, you know what, they've bought the rights. That means I don't have any rights anymore. That's what it means. Dear. I will just let them do their thing. And at best, I will like it. And if not, you know what, the book's still there. It's right there on the shelf. They haven't changed a word. So I just saw it as, a bonus. And I thought, okay, let them set it in space if they want to. We'll just see what happens. And as it happened, they didn't set it in space or in America, which was also on the cards. And I thought, you know what, they've actually come much closer to the original material than I thought they would, because they had a lot of other plans, which would have taken it in a completely different direction. And they came back to France and to Europe, and they had a European cast mostly. And I thought, okay, this is all right. It's not quite as I wrote it, but then it's, I don't write movies.
It is a different.
Was it difficult to let go? Was it like, this is my baby question. And it's hard to let go? I've given birth to this, and now I've got to completely give it away. Is it like that, or am I exaggerating?
It didn't feel that to me at the time. It felt like a liberation, because it felt as if the movie was giving me the freedom to give up my teaching job, because I hadn't given it up by then. I was still teaching.
Right.
And just, to take my writing a step further and to do it full time. And I'd never thought that would be an option, because I'd written 3 books before I had any kind of success. And during that time, there was no possibility of me quitting teaching, because I just wouldn't have been paid enough. But Chocolat gave me not huge money, but it gave me maybe 3 or 4 years of confidence to keep going, doing what I was doing. And that was really valuable. And I thought, okay, even if the movie sucks, even if I hate it, it's still given me that.
It's all wonderful. It would be
to have that time and that little financial buffer to do that, that's brilliant. It was, I guess, what you needed at the time on the journey. It's sort of,
that was so helpful.
Trusting in the journey, the journey of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And most authors never get to work full time. Most authors hang on to the day job forever, because it's just financial security and it makes sense. Yeah,
well, I mean, congratulations on making that leap. What was it like seeing it on? I know you've said it was different on screen, but what was it? It must be a bit exciting seeing your work on screen. I've got to ask.
Oh gosh, yes, of course, it was tremendously exciting. I had seen little snips of the rushes at the end of the day when they were filming it, and I was on set, but I'd not seen anything put together. And so, I saw it at the premiere, like everybody else. And, I was in New York. I was sitting there. I had a guy from Miramax on either side of me, and they were there to watch me, to make sure that, if I hated it, I could be, hidden or bundled out or something. And I thought, I've got this. I had a big bucket of popcorn, and I got halfway through the credits, and then I saw my name on there and just went and aspirated half a bucket of popcorn and basically had to be trolleyed
How
out.
exciting, though. What a wonderful experience.
But it was beautiful to see it on screen. It looked amazing. The cast was amazing. The soundtrack was perfect. And yes, and there were little things on the screen that were from my house, because when Juliette Binoche came to go over the script with me, as she did in my home, she picked up a few little things and put them on the set. And so when you see Vianne in her chocolate shop, she has a sort of little decoration decoration made of bells and little red good luck sachets. She took that from my kitchen and put it in her kitchen on there.
How fascinating.
And I still get a little kind of, if I see that movie and I see her doing that.
I bet you do. Wow.
What a set of wonderful experiences.
Isn't that great? You know, can you imagine if the phone went? Yeah, no, sorry, Doreen, can't talk to you. I got Juliette Binoche in the kitchen. No, I'm serious. No, I'm not drunk. No, Juliette Binoche, yes, the actress. No, she's really here. That's great. When you went back,
can I ask about your synesthesia? Because I've read about this.
Yeah,
and it's been able to. It's a blending of senses, isn't it? And you say you can taste colours. Is that it?
I can. I'm not sure I know the difference between taste and smell. I think that's also part of synesthesia. I often get those things mixed up. But also when I see certain colours, and particularly bright colours, I mean, for instance, there is a combination of blue and yellow on the back screen that I'm looking at here, which smells really quite strongly of petrol. And it's a bit alarming because I know there isn't any petrol in the room. And if I shut my eyes, I know perfectly well.
Would you like me to change the background?
No, it's fine. I'm used to it. And I also, I generally enjoy my synesthesia impressions, and they're enriching. Not everybody with synesthesia thinks this way. But yes, strong colours, and particularly in bright light, will ping these scents to me. And because, I think that's why I write so much in colour and in scent, because that's how I experience the world primarily.
In a sense, it's an absolute gift to you. Maybe it's part of why your writing is as good as it is, because you can blend the senses, you can taste colours. I know it sounds really off the wall, Russ, but I've read quite a lot about this, and synesthesia, it really is fascinating. And apparently only a very small percent of people experience it as a disorder. Most people, like yourself, experiences it as enriching, as a whole new dimension to perception, possibly.
Yes, some people do experience it as a painful disorder. And when I found out I had synesthesia, I'd been like this all my life. I was in my 30s when I realized that it was an actual thing and there was a name for it. And that was me. I saw a TV show on it and I thought, wow, they're describing me. And so I got in touch online with a number of other people with synesthesia. And I just met one guy who found his synesthesia so overwhelming that he couldn't go out. And he was a guy who heard colours. And he said, I can't go into most department stores, and you go into Benetton and it's nothing but this noise. And so to him, his neurodiverse condition was something that kept him at home. But most people I know have basically mostly got positive experiences, and it's joyous. And even when you do get a bad combination that smells of fish or something, I just live with it. And if it's really overwhelming and the light is really bright, I just wear sunglasses, and that tends to dampen.
So what would be a nice? What would you have to see for it to be a nice taste or smell?
Oh, nearly all things are. That I've got a big collection of red encyclopedias here, and that particular color red smells of chocolate. The red always smells of chocolate to me.
Is my hat okay?
Your hat is fine. It doesn't smell of chocolate. It has a slightly sort of vanilla-y, because it's a sort of burnt orange, that to me. And so it doesn't
kind of maroony.
It doesn't ping chocolate in the way that it has to be a certain particular kind of red.
So close.
So it's different shades of red are different things. What about my white shirt? Out of interest.
No, your white shirt doesn't ping anything. Neutrals don't have that. So black and white and sort of dingy colours, generally, they don't do it. They've got to be like bright colours.
Isn't it?
Joanne, does it affect what you wear?
Yes.
Because you think, well, I don't want to smell like, I don't know, let's say petrol today.
No, that's right. Well, petrol is quite nice. I enjoy the smell of petrol, actually. I enjoy the smell of most kind of volatile substances. But yeah,
you like there is some that smell.
Yes, I do. I'm terrible. I would be sniffing those things all the time if I was using them. So I'm glad I don't. But yeah, the other day, for instance, I was wearing a mauve top, and I had a yellow necklace on with a little yellow stone, and I had to take it off because the combination of purple and yellow smells of fish. And I thought, I could probably get away with just keeping the necklace. Nope, the fish smell stayed, and after a while, I just had to take it off because.
Is it, Joanne? Because this is, I didn't even know we were going to go there, and thank you for opening up the door. But because it's fascinating, and in a minute I'm going to ask if you take some questions. But
of course,
is it? an overwhelming smell. I mean, is it like you're standing in Tesco's at the fish counter with the fish thing, for example? Or is it a hint?
It can be. It depends on my perception. If we were in the shed now, there's a lot of pink in the shed in one way or another. And the shed always smells slightly of vanilla because of that, because that sort of pinky red combination tends to be, it's sweet, but not like chocolate. It's more like a kind of vanilla spicy scent. It really depends on the saturation. So if I'm in a room with a lot of colors, like books or cushions or something, I will generally ping the most saturated color, the brightest and the one which is mostly there. And so there's usually a dominant color scheme. If I'm traveling on trains, it's usually the livery and there is actually a dreadful train company that has a purple and yellow livery of all things, and it just smells of fish there all the time. And I know this.
Oh Lord.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's I don't always know what a room is going to convey.
This is a good question. We're going to take some of the. We've got people watching from all over the world, by the way.
Yeah, it must be tons of questions.
This is from Paul Claridge from the exciting, exotic location of East Croydon. Joanne.
Oh, this is a good question.
When you have a blocked nose or lose your sense of smell, can you still smell colours? What a brilliant question.
It is, and yes, I can. When I had COVID, about 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks ago now, I was constantly having to shut my eyes to find out if I'd lost my sense of smell or not, because I could still smell all the synesthesia colours, but I wasn't sure about the other things, the other smells. As it happened, I didn't lose my sense of smell at all, which was good, because I think it would really bother me if that happened.
On a personal note, sorry, Neil, on a personal, how long did COVID last? Please give me a clue.
Well, with me, I was out of my symptoms 3 weeks down the line because I was on antivirals because I'm immunosuppressed.
Yes.
And so I had 1 week of feeling really, and then after that it got a little better.
And fully recovered.
So yes, my thoughts are with you there, Russ.
Bless you.
Yes, I'm fully recovered now. I didn't have any lingering after effects. I do think that the secret is that you do have to rest, whether you feel you can or you want to or not. It is really important to rest more than you think you need to. And that does speed up recovery. I don't have a heck
of a choice. I'll be honest with you, Joanne. I don't have a heck of a choice at the moment.
I know.
This is from Dave Sleet, who's got a wonderful psychotherapeutic company called ANA. Dave Sleet says this: sensory connections are could you read this? I'm so sorry, Neil. Would you mind reading
Of course. Sensory connections, says Dave, are amazingly powerful. Joanne's mastery of communication of her sensory connections is simply amazing. I would certainly agree with that.
That's a lovely compliment. Thank you, Dave.
Can it be learned? Because and this is not COVID related, by the way, but I lost my sense of smell and taste about 3 years ago. I just had a cold. Normally goes away for about 3 days and it comes back, but for some reason it never came back. And this has just opened up a whole new set of possibilities in my mind. Can these, apparently we can learn how to lucid dream, we can learn how to meditate. Can we learn synesthesia? And could I use that to cure my lack of sense of smell?
Well, do you know, I think possibly you could.
Wow.
I think the brain is so interesting and neurological connections are so weird and random and haphazard that I think you could. Now, Gide wrote a book, the French author, wrote a book called La Symphonie Pastorale, which is about a man who tries to teach a blind girl how to understand colours through classical music. And I think it was a way in his mind of reconnecting her perception via something that she could connect with and trying to give her the impression of something that she couldn't. I think it could quite possibly be trained. And I also think that everybody has a level of synesthesia in them, because we naturally talk about certain things. Being in the language of perfumery, we talk about green scents, and everybody knows what that means. So I think
a pungent attitude. People have a pungent attitude.
Exactly, and there was a synesthesia experiment done some years ago whereby people were shown two shapes. One was a little spiky shape and the other was a fat round shape. And they were told, these shapes are called Booba and Kiki. Which is which? And almost everybody in the study said that Kiki was the little spiky shape and that Booba was the big fat shape. And this too is synesthesia. It is the impression that you get from a shape and the translation of that impression into a sound. And so I think it could quite easily be argued, at least, that you could learn to smell via
because there was this thing. I was talking about this morning because I've got a friend that's very into virtual reality, and what he would do is take virtual reality headsets when his dad was in a care home and give these wonderful octogenarians experiences they could never have. And there was an actual experiment done on it a while ago, and they got a bunch of people in their 80s and they recreated what it was like in their early days in a completely immersive environment. So the newscasts of the day, the films of the day, the music
That's
of the
fabulous.
day. And do you know these people mental health improved like that? Do you know their pain levels went down by about 80%? Do you know their skin galvanic response? And that's just with that, and it's not even real, but the brain doesn't kind of know the difference. So if that's possible, this is possible too.
Absolutely.
What else is possible?
I would argue that if the brain thinks it's real, then it's real. Because actually we have such different perceptions of the world that there is no such thing as an objective sensory truth. There is only the way you perceive it. And so absolutely, and I think these things can
reality is a personal thing.
Yes.
I
and also
agree.
people experience, stroke victims can experience synesthesia suddenly from a brain injury or something like this. So I think these things, these neural pathways can be, I suspect, explored.
There was a book written about that, was it? Jill Someone, My Stroke of Insight. Have you heard of that?
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that one.
She had a stroke, but she had a complete awareness of what was happening. And for her, it kind of broke. You know, you hear when people have these like major spiritual experiences, they feel one with everything. Their ego boundaries have gone. And her perception just went universally massive. And she described the whole process. And then as it healed, the perception could have went back down to what it was before. Extraordinary.
Now,
sorry, I don't want to go for a tangent. This is so interesting.
This is from Leslie Demesa, who's a lovely person and a brain box. I'm with Joanne 100% on the problems of the way the government want English and the attendant exams delivered. Analyzing every sentence is a real killer. Authors write books and poetry to be read, possibly read aloud, and enjoyed exactly as the consumer wants. I think it's possibly why, if I just could extrapolate from that, why a lot of people go, oh, Shakespeare, God, no, I had to go through that at O level and A level. I quite liked it as it happens, but it's like, I don't do it often for pleasure. I have to kind of drag myself along. I think it's right.
No, I agree. Right. I think it is. It is a little difficult, and I think we have a government of people who generally don't read at all, and who don't understand the purpose of reading, and who don't understand how pleasure in reading leads to more reading. But making people not like reading doesn't lead to more reading, and so actually the pleasure is the thing that comes first.
I agree. And the analytical mind can only go so far. Sometimes the reading needs to be, like yours, completely immersive. And saying that sentence means that, the author meant that when that, it's like analysing, it's like intellectualizing music.
No,
exactly.
It's worse.
Nobody
knows.
You don't go to the nightclub to intellectualize the music, do you?
No, it's worse.
Absolutely.
It's like intellectualizing comedy. There is nothing more boring on this planet than being in the queue at the NHS surgery, and you're number 28 or something. But apart from that, when people analyze comedy, it's so dull. It's not designed to be analyzed. It's no good sitting there stroking an imaginary beard going, well, I think what he meant. It's a gag. Get over it.
Absolutely. No, sometimes things are just there to be experienced, not to be deconstructed. There's a wonderful line from Keats, from Lamia, and he says, there was an awesome rainbow in the sky. We know her woof, her texture. She is part of the dull catalogue of common things. And what he's saying there is sometimes you just want to look at a rainbow. You do not want to know exactly why it's made that way. And poetry is like this. Art is like this. And yes, sometimes, sometimes it's interesting to look at how something's built. But actually, you don't have to. You don't have to know how to build a car to drive one.
No,
precisely. It was weird. I was on, I can't remember what show it was, and saying what people like, and quite recently, and I said I really like the artist Kandinsky. I said, but I have no idea why. I know nothing whatsoever about art. I look at it, I love it. Why do I like it? Don't know, but I really do. And I thought that was fair enough. I don't need to know why I like it. I just happen to like it, and other stuff I don't like.
I like ice cream, but why do I like it? Who cares?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Now,
I'm a science geek. I love knowing how things are made, but there's a time to step out of that as well and just have that experience. And as a normal viewer, it's so frustrating for you when people try to deconstruct and intellectualize your work, because that would drive me crazy if I was you personally.
Do you get that?
I often get people asking questions about
what
I meant.
Just experience it,
Exactly.
What did you
and
mean
I just say,
by...
pretend I'm dead. Just don't ask me.
Don't say that. Ooh, don't say that. Don't say that. Does it? That's really interesting. What Neil just said. I was going to ask you. You go to these book events, and people are pretty fanatical about it. It's like a rock show for them, and they're meeting their heroes and heroines, etc. But does it get on your nerves in a nice way when people say? I mean, do people ever say to you, well, Joanne, I mean, I love the way they just come like they know you. Joanne, I wouldn't have written that. What I would have done, it's like, well, you didn't write the book. Shut up. What's it going to do with you?
Honestly, people don't do this to me. They sometimes in a review, you have somebody going, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that. But people generally don't do it in person. Generally, people who come to events are there to share what the book meant to them. Or they're there to say, hey, I really liked this. Can you sign it? Or this is my favorite. I'm sorry I dropped it in the bath. Those are my favorite people. Or I just wanted to tell you how much this helped me through a bad time, or it reminded me of my mother or my grandfather. Or that's mostly what people do. And no, I never get tired of this, because actually, this connection that we make as writers with readers, it's something so valuable. I mean, that's what it's about. We are there to try and get something across, and to see that that's happened, it's a wonderful thing. It's like when I play with the band and we do story time, and people turn up and they don't know even what they're going to get, and you just get that moment where it clicks and you see in their eyes that you have made a connection. And this is why I like performing with the band and doing the music, because actually I can see that in real time.
We'll come on to that in just a second. Thanks for the aid memoir. This is coming in from New York State, not New York City, New York State, from the great Asa Don Brown, who's very high up in the therapeutic community there. And he says, I won't do the voice because I haven't got it left. Joanne Harris, while I have a background in clinical psychology, including a PhD, it's a bit of a brain box, Joanne, to be honest with you, I'm in the process of completing a master's in creative writing and literature from Harvard. What advice would you give an aspiring novelist? Ooh, big question.
Well, it is a big question, and the answer isn't a big one. I would say, first of all, read as widely as you possibly can, in as many genres as possible, and in as many media as possible. That includes graphic novels, comics, games, plays, film scripts, newspapers, magazines, novels, everything. And the second is just drop this word aspiring that people love so much. Actually do some writing, do the writing, because if you write, you are a writer. There is nothing aspiring about it. When you have words on a page, that's what you are. And then you can just give yourself permission to be a writer and just move on and just try and get better and better and better.
How do you deal with the inner critic that we've all got, unless you don't have it, in which case, great, that goes, it's rubbish, you're not good enough, you can't do that.
I have it. I have it, but that's not a critic. That is your sense of writer's guilt speaking, or that is your sense of inferiority. That's not a real critic. You have to distance that, because that's not a useful voice. The critical voice is a really good one to keep, because actually self-criticism is really important. But that sense of inadequacy, I think the thing to do is to go, okay, everyone has one of these. Forget it, keep going, push through the pain.
So you mean to critique yourself in the sense of feedback and constant improvement, constructive criticism, but not, I mean, I think the one I meant is like the little troll that never says anything. You could have written 20 bestsellers and it would still tell you you're not good enough or not as good as that.
I know them well. They're there, they're sitting on your shoulder going, it was a fluke, you're not going to be able to do it again.
The famous imposter syndrome,
and
of course.
Everybody has it. I think the important thing is always to remember you're not alone. Everybody you have ever admired has it. And you just push it aside because it is of no use to you, whatever. And also it's kind of full of it, and you don't need to listen to that voice.
Precisely so. Eve Phantom, crazy name, crazy. I can't do the voice this time. I'm sorry, Eve. Just let people take enjoyment from literature, music, and comedy, etc., and interpret it how they want to. We can each have a unique and different experience of the same book, poem, song, or stand-up show. That's the beauty of different points of view. Totally so.
Absolutely.
Totally so.
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking before about the uniqueness of perception, and that applies to our perception of art too. There is no objective interpretation of any kind of creative art. There is just what you see.
This is what I've been trying to communicate to my friend who wrote the book, because he would ask me what I thought, but if I didn't feed it back in exactly the way he thought he meant it, he would get furious, and he could not understand that I could appreciate it in my own way. He would get furious, and I'm like, but you can't control people's perception. If you're going to try and be a writer and do that, he's going to have a really hard time. And
you can't, and you shouldn't.
He's got to kind of learn that for himself.
It takes a while. It takes a while to learn it. You can't and you shouldn't, because actually, once you give it to somebody else, to the public, then it's not yours anymore. It's theirs. And they can do with it what you like. All you can do is stand there on the stage or wherever and go, right, I made this. I made it for you. Here you are. I hope you like it. And not everybody will. And some people may really not like it or get it at all. But if there is one person there who gets it and who is changed by it, then you did something amazing.
Beautifully stated.
So beautifully put. Beautifully
stated. I love that.
Shall
I get this one, Russ?
Yes, please.
I'm with you on this. I like art, music, and films, but more often than not, I just want to enjoy them for what they are. I don't need someone telling me, "Oh, the director filmed that way, and it means blah blah blah." Yeah.
Absolutely. Nobody needs to be told anything about how to appreciate the art they're consuming.
The Beatles felt like that. They were at the time, and we always forget how young they were. They were 4 kids from Liverpool, suddenly the most famous people on the planet. And all these geniuses are saying, well, what John meant, what Paul meant. We just wrote stuff down. Don't tell us what it, that's your view of what it is. This is coming in from New York City, Manhattan itself, in the heart of Manhattan. When you write, do you know where you're going? I found once it started, it just takes over and finds its own way.
I'm a bit like that too, Elizabeth. Not everybody is. Some people have a very architectural approach to planning a book. What I tend to do is I have some kind of little islands and a bit of a trajectory, and it's a question of finding my way to those islands, and what I'm going to find in the middle, who knows? It does find its way. I get to sort
thank you for saying that.
Going.
I love that as well.
It's organic.
You've made me feel so much
You have
better.
a way with words, but there again, it's not really much of a surprise.
Oh, look at this. Azadon Brown, again from New York State, the easternmost point of America, he keeps saying, quite rightly so. Thank you, Joanne, for the advice and for being interviewed today. Well, it's a conversation, isn't it? I prefer conversation to interview. But yes, there we go. What is this? Could you read this out, Neil? Would you mind?
My brother has got Erlen syndrome, and he can see different colours differently, and he wears different coloured glasses to help him see better. Similar to synesthesia, but maybe just with one sense rather than by blending of senses.
Yes, I can see that might help in the cases of some people. I don't tend to do that because I quite like my strange perceptions of the world.
Let's get on to another string to your bow, which is music. Tell us about that, because I didn't know until I was buffing up on you, and I thought, good Lord, I didn't know anything about that.
Well, I've been a musician for as long as I've been a writer. I actually met my husband because of musical lyrics written on a desk at school. And we met that way. It was like the low-tech equivalent of an internet chat room. We wrote Pink Floyd lyrics on a desk until we finally met and found out who had been doing
early
it.
Social media.
Exactly. And we got into a band when I was 16 and he was 18. He was a drummer. And I really wanted to be in this band, but I was a classically trained flautist. And so I thought, what do they not have? They don't have a bass. And so I asked for a bass for my 17th birthday and joined this band. And we've been together ever since. He and our best friend Paul, who plays
the
keyboards.
Same band?
We've been in this band, and we now do this show called Story Time, which is basically original music and songs and stories from some of my books. Actually, we're playing on the 21st of May at Seven Arts in Leeds. And it'll be pretty much the first time we've played since lockdown. We're just getting back into gigging on a regular basis again.
What style of music do you play?
Well, it's kind of soft prog. It's melodic progressive, I guess. We were very influenced by people like Genesis and Pink Floyd and Camel and King Crimson and people like this. So
your song's 17 and a half minutes long, like most prog songs are.
Not really, no, but there are stories attached, and so
I've never thought of you, Joanne, as the Geddy Lee of literature.
I'm definitely not the Geddy Lee of literature.
Do you like Rush?
Our keyboard player is definitely the love child of Tony Banks, and my husband does admire Phil Collins enormously. But I'm not quite sure who I am in that little group.
Do you like Rush? Did you like Rush?
I do like Rush, but I because I was a flautist, I wanted to be Ian Anderson.
Of course you
So
did.
I guess I'm Ian Anderson, and actually flute has come back now to our repertoire. I thought at the time, well, they'll never want a flautist, but actually I play flute more than I do bass nowadays because it's found its level.
My parents were a massive fan of James Galway, and they bought me a flute in the hope I might be the next one. I'm afraid I failed them dismally.
James Galway may have put off a lot of aspiring young flautists.
Put me off, that's for sure.
Through no fault of his own. I did learn to play Annie's song, which impressed my parents.
At school, we loved Jethro Tull. Yeah, I am that old. And we saw Jethro Tull play. We saw all the bands play. You know, when I tell people who are a little bit younger than me, which is nearly everybody, what you saw the Beatles? Yeah, Dad took me. You saw the Stones, Led Zeppelin, everybody, and it wasn't a big deal. Hendrix, loads of times, etc. And the stuff of myth. Ian Anderson was fantastic. He was just great. I mean, at the peak of his game, and he's still around.
Yeah, he's still around and he's still good. But he was an extraordinary flautist. I honestly thought I've seen him live too. And I did think in some of his pieces that he had to be multi-tracking. And he wasn't. He's genuinely got two larynxes or something. He's like Thijs van Leer. He can just do amazing vocal and also playing flute at the same time.
Do you know why he played flute? He didn't know what else to do. Like you, he's not allowed to do flute. He didn't know what to do. I know you with bass, and he thought, well, all right, I'll learn the flute, and he did, just out of kind of necessity, not because he had a great passion for it.
Swine.
And the rest, as they say, the rest, as they say, is history. That's quite extraordinary. If you like bass playing, by the way, could I shove somebody in your direction to look up that probably hasn't come across your purview? It's a young guy. He's English, but he lives in Boston now. I've never heard anybody play bass. I just found him on YouTube quite by chance. His name is Charles Berthaud. B is like Bert, and then AUHD at the end of it. I've never heard anybody play bass like this guy.
Right, I'm writing him down now. I should look him up. I'm always interested.
Yeah, he plays. I mean, I play drums. I don't play anything else. And he plays bass. He makes it sound so beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I love it when that happens. I'm a big fan of Ed Elaine Johnson, who has got an astonishing bass sound, who makes it sound basically like a cello.
Yes,
with the cello on some kind of wonderful Technicolor drug, but yes, wonderful. I definitely look him up. I'm always on the lookout for new music.
He plays. I think you'll be impressed and inspired. I mean, he's been playing. I mean, he's very young, but obviously he started very young, and you can watch his progression as well. It's great. This is just a stupid question, but I'm allowed one. What kit does your husband play?
He's got Gretsch. He's got a vintage Gretsch with a maple.
The original round with the round logo. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know it's niche.
He wanted one for a long time, and
fabulous.
I have got a Purple Music Man bass, but I don't use it very often now because what with the band with the stories and the singing and the flute. I just thought maybe we could have another bassist in, and given that our new bassist is so much better than me anyway, we'll probably keep
but
him.
people want to see you. They go, my God,
they will. They'll see
Joanne
me.
Harris up there. She's playing bass.
I'll
Look,
definitely
with Gretsch,
be there.
as far as your husband's concerned, if it's good enough for Charlie Watts for 50
Absolutely.
years, it's good enough for everybody. That's all I have to say about
Well, that's
Gretsch.
kind of what he thinks too.
Oh, totally so. Now, as we run up to the end, I haven't gone there. How is your health now? Are you good?
I'm great. I finished all my treatments in July, and I've still got a bit of neuropathy in my feet from the chemo. But other than that, I'm hopefully all clear, and hopefully I'm going to stay that way.
Good for you. Good to hear.
I'm certainly planning to.
Damn
good
right,
for you.
Damn right you are. You've been very, very. I avoided it. Because I know everybody wanted to talk about all the other things, but so I'm only cramming this in at the end. You've been so open and so inspirational about your I'm going to say journey, about cancer. Let's say what it is. And you've been very open. You said, "This is me, and this is what I look like now, and this is what I'm going through." I wonder, do you realize how many people you inspired?
I didn't realize at the time.
Oh God!
But
that's
I
why
got so much
I resonated
feedback
with you.
from people, and I realized that actually, because it was lockdown, and because lockdown was scary anyway, and obviously getting a cancer diagnosis is scary too, but getting it during lockdown when there are all sorts of things that you can't do and people you can't connect with, I thought, okay, I'm going to just do this and go, right, I had a mammogram. Some of you are cancelling your mammograms. Don't do that, because this one might well have saved my life, and there's that. And this is what happens when you get a diagnosis. These are the things that you go through. It's not the end of the world. You get through it. This is how it feels, because I think the unknown is much worse. Yeah. So just demystifying it a bit, actually saying the word cancer out loud and owning it and going, right, okay, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen, you're going to have this, you're going to have that, you're going to lose your hair, and it's going to come back. You come back from these things, and it's good. I'm seeing Paul Claridge saying, from one cancer survivor to another, it's so good to hear you're okay. Well, thank you. Solidarity to you too, Paul. And
well, thank you for inspiring so many people in so many ways. I mean, not with just that, but with your writing, of course, and just everything.
And this is
Charles Bateau is a student at Berklee College of Music, where my friend Marty Walsh is a professor. Very nice.
There we are. He is as well. That's why he went over to Boston. You did inspire so many people, and by taking away the fear, we talk about this a lot on Men's Radio, Joanne, and it's like, one could say the word cancer as though it's like calling up the devil, like one of those silly
Candyman.
Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Say it three times, it will appear. Come leaping up the mirror at you. It's true. I mean, do you remember people would say, someone say, "Oh, they're not well." What do you mean? "Oh, they're not well," and you couldn't even say the word in private conversation in case it sort of sprang upon the globe. And you've done so much because of your profile, and because you have a following of people who admire you so much. They admired you even more because of that, of being so candid about it. I mean, I took a lot from that. That's actually much more than
well, if anybody got something from that, I'm really glad. And if anybody, got tested or just didn't cancel their mammogram or felt that they were not quite as alone, then that was a good thing, and that's why I was doing it.
Yeah. And particularly during lockdown as well, people needed that connection more than anything.
Yeah.
Very much. It was a lonely time.
You look very well. I mean, you really.
No, I feel great now.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
I do. I feel great.
This is good. And then you've just got a few little after effects, and then you're up and running.
I think so. Well, I'm up and running anyway. I mean, a little bit of numbness in my toes is a small price to pay, I think, for blitzing from orbit the individual that I referred to as Mr. C throughout all of this, who I saw as a sort of nasty little goblin who needed to be excised.
Yeah, I love the way that you called that. Joanne, it's been such a joy. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for the massive amount of pleasure you have given millions and millions of people. Literature, books, all wonderful for everybody's mental health. to just take them away and expand their view of everything. And you're in the forefront of that. It's been a pleasure.
You.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's been
lovely chatting with both of you. Thank you so much.
All the best for the future with everything. It's been a pleasure to meet you.
And
it really has. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Oh, what an amazing.
Well, I'm off to my
amazing
film
person.
premiere, Mr. Kane.
Oh, you are. I'm so sorry we didn't have time to chat to your young lady.
Not a problem. I'll tell you.
I hope it all goes very well. We're completely
Perhaps we can get her on another
time
because it's about OCD and mental health.
Please
and
do.
that. So.
Good luck. Enjoy the film. That's the end of the show. We're right.
See you Wednesday, folks.
Bye, gang.